Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new edition of Pod by the Bay. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me, Seth Varnadore, Robert Steeg. There's a football game to be played this week. It's been one of the longest weeks ever, seemingly. It's been, as we record, 4 or 5 days since Amir Abdur-Rahim's untimely passing, and just feels like this USF community is kind of reeling right now. So I guess good thing there's a game on Friday night. I guess distractions. A lot of people need distractions when bad things happen. This can be one of them. I do know there's the exhibition is going on as scheduled on Wednesday against Edward Waters at 7 p.m. at the Yingling Center. The men's basketball team said on Tuesday. Interim head coach Ben Fletcher, who was with Amir for quite a while at Kennesaw and then came over with him to USF. He'll be the interim this year. So the players had the opportunity to just kind of forget about this game, and they wanted to play it. So here we are playing an exhibition game against Edward Waters before the season opener up in Jacksonville at Florida. I think we start Alex Golesh. We kind of talked about it on the podcast, remembering AAR that they were pretty close, and I think Steeg Golesh kind of went into how close they were. And what did you take away from what Golesh and basically everybody since the last 4 or 5 days has kind of come to understand about Amir and everything that he kind of stood for and moving forward? And we'll get into the football, but I think this is kind of more important. He kind of it was a shock reaction sort of thing, and kind of wanted to give a couple days and see kind of how we are doing as a community at large, and as well as us fans and everything like that. So
yeah. No, I mean, I don't think Hard even begins to describe how difficult it has been for the last couple of days. I mean, when you texted us, I mean, you said massive news, and I mean, my mind couldn't have even gone to that being what the massive news was. But I mean, you see it everywhere. I mean, it's almost impossible that a day has gone by where someone isn't saying something in remembrance towards Coach Amir, his impact. And the thing that I take solace in was that it's almost always talking about his impact off the court rather than what he did on the court. Of course, you lead with, the turnaround at Kennesaw State, the turnaround here at South Florida, but it's always just the lead into the incredible human being he was. And that, again, doesn't even begin to describe it in its entirety, because the way he carried himself just throughout life was just awe-inspiring. It's the positive impact that he had when he walked into a room, walked into the Yingling Center, walked into the practice facility. It was like a new energy and a new breath of fresh air every time he walked into the room. And every single time you just felt the belief, you felt his words having a little bit more meaning behind them for every time that he said things. When he talked about the team being elite in what they do and everything that they do, at first it was like, oh yeah, we've heard, hold yourself to a high standard before from coaches. But as the season went on, you could see that effect, and it quickly, I mean, like something I'd never seen, it immediately impacted the other coaches at USF. It impacted the other players in other sports at USF. And it's just, again, this sucks, man. Like this isn't even like taking off the USF cap for a second. We lost one of the most incredible human beings I have ever met, and I've ever had the pleasure to know in this life. And it's going to be a while before I probably will even think about stepping into the Yingling Center, because I can't even imagine it right now. Like, I couldn't imagine having to go watch a USF men's basketball game at this point, just because it was hard. Like, it hurt, and it still hurts.
Yeah, and what's interesting is Tom Crean. He coached with Amir at Georgia for 2 seasons, and it seemed like, just like anybody, just immediate, laser beam attraction, that they were kind of inseparable, and it just the Crean has just been. I don't know if you guys have seen it on Twitter or whatever, but like Crean's been pretty beat up about this, and I think that kind of shows to the impact of what like one person can kind of have on someone's life. And I think you've seen it with Jaden Reed and Chris Youngblood, and the players, their condolences and everything, coming out to the family, and Golesh on Tuesday kind of talking about the conversations, on the drive home. They were kind of going through the same thing. Amir had rebuilt a god awful Kennesaw State team into a NCAA tournament team, kind of going through the trials and tribulations of that. And it's, I think those are some of the underrated things that I think the general public and fans at large don't understand. Like, yeah, they all work for the same school, university, but sometimes sports don't really mix. And it seemed like, at least at USF over the last couple of years, I think Michael Kelly and the staff over there really kind of made a point of emphasis to intermingle the coaching staff, the players. We mentioned just the outpouring, golfers, tennis players. It was not just a men's basketball, women's basketball sort of thing. It was a university-wide thing. So they have the remembrance up at Kennesaw on Sunday. They've got one in Tampa on Saturday. I think that starts at 2:00 on Saturday. So it's free to go up to, I think it's the Yingling Center. I really have not been in the right frame of mind to even start looking at that stuff, but I think it's at the Yingling Center, 2:00, I believe, for noon on Saturday. If you guys can make it, you can go. So yeah, I guess horrible, awful, hard pivot. There is a football game to be played. USF travels down to Boca. They face an FAU team that's reeling, to say the least. 7:30 ESPN2. FAU's 2-5. They have not looked good this season at really any point. They got whooped by a kind of a bad UTSA team 2 weeks ago. They're coming off a bye, 38-24. They lost to North Texas. Their two wins are FIU, which I guess FIU's kind of okay now. I think they're closing in on bowl eligibility, right? I think they're
I think they're 2-6.
2-6. Man, I messed that up. They're beating New Mexico State right now, so that's cool. And then they beat Wagner. So
that is a big improvement.
that is fair. Quarterback sucks. Cam Fancher's terrible. He's a good runner, decent runner. Can't really throw the ball. 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Doesn't really throw the ball deep. I think according to PFF, 60% of the passes, something like that, are 10 yards or fewer. Doesn't really push the ball down. They've got a couple running backs that are good. Golesh kind of mentioned that. But Seth, what's kind of your overarching theme as we look toward a Friday night game where it's not just to get back to 500, it's to kind of get back some of the swagger that you've lost this year. And, Golesh made a point to say, yes, we do remember what happened last year, the onside kick up basically 50. These two staffs don't like each other. There was tripping in the offseason. What's kind of at stake for this Bulls team as we head into Friday night?
Well, I think we talked about before the UAB game that it felt like if you lost that game, you would have lost a lot of the momentum you built up in the in the kind of the previous season and the first part of this season. This one I don't think is quite as dire as that, but still, like it would be a big. Even though this is a team you lost to last year, you think if you're moving forward, this is a team you beat, regardless of whether it's home or on the road. Now, the interesting part is the FAU defense, by a lot of numbers, is decent. But then they're also one of the worst in country in terms of available yards and points per drive. So, very bizarre. Very kind of it's going to be a weird game, I think. And it's really which offense do you trust more to kind of play well? I think to me, it's because the USF offense statistically is terrible. We've seen at times we've seen that there's been some stuff open. There's been some proficiency at times, but over the sample size of the season, it's been pretty bad. I think USF's more talented at quarterback and that key position, but FAU seems to be a little bit better statistically running the ball, and so it's kind of which offense can show up. I think is kind of the big question here. Is USF as bad as the stats look? If they are, I think they could be in for a long night, but it feels like they may be better. They're maybe getting weighed down by some tough early season games.
Steeg, I think you probably have some personal insight to how much the staff hates Tom Herman specifically.
Yeah.
We've talked about it over the last year. For you, what's the key ingredient for this Bulls team to show that, hey, they're not as bad as they were against Tulane, and they weren't as bad as they were against Memphis or the first quarter at Alabama, the second half of Miami? What can this Bulls team do in your eyes to kind of flip the perception of a coach that's 10-10 through his first 20 games? Quick aside, I was at a wedding on Saturday, and there was 3 guys standing behind me in line for drinks, and they were just ripping Golesh a new one. And I think that's the uphill climb that he's got. What do they have to do to kind of stem the tide of the fan fervor of being disenchanted with this coaching staff?
Yeah, I think there's one very simple thing that they can, well, besides win, and I would probably say win convincingly too, but we'll get into that later. I think a very simple thing that they can do to kind of win the fervor back a little bit is to score a touchdown first, plain and simple. And the offense understandably has been reeling over the last few weeks. Miami's second half where they just are Miami, the Tulane game, Memphis, and then last week against UAB. Your offense, while it has played fine at times, has not been efficient to start the game. And I think that's probably the concern that most fans have, with recent memory, is that, they haven't started well when they've had the opportunity. Some people are likening it a lot to one Sterling Gilbert style of offense where it's just kind of hurry up and halfback dive, and then 6-yard incompletion or something like that. So, and clearly, for followers of the show, it's not. It's a little bit more rudimentary. So there's a little bit more nuances to it than what Sterling Gilbert was doing. But I think if USF can come out, if they can score first, maybe go up by double digits at some point, who knows, and kind of relaxingly have a lead at some point, I think that helps out greatly, because last week it was sweating a lot. you're sweating until the third quarter where you're down 2 scores against a team who, by all intents and purposes, had quit. And by last week, I mean the week before. And so I think that might be able to help quell and give your players some confidence, especially if you can, force a turnover 3 and out on the other side on defense. If you can get your offense rolling in the way that other teams had been rolling against you, then that probably, the crowd that's chanting for Golesh to go would probably flip a switch on that.
All fair points. I think the massive question mark going into this game as well, the health status of Byron Brown. Listeners of this show, Patreon members have known his status for quite a while. I'll kind of give a little snippet of stuff here for the Pod by the BAE folks. Was told prior to the game 2 weeks ago, so the UAB game, this team likes to rush guys back maybe a little bit quicker than necessary or needed. And the Patreon people who kind of know the injury issue, that's a plug to join the Patreon. That's absolutely what that is, tease. No, there's an NFL player who dealt with the same injury and is still not back yet. And it happened a week prior to Byram's injury, actually a few weeks prior to Byram's injury. So take that for what you will. I think Friday would be a rush back for Byron Brown. I think we're getting another Bryce Archie game. Golesh on Tuesday made it a point to say, hey, I never technically lied to you guys about Byram practicing. It's a stretch. There's some folks around the program who kind of laughed when I mentioned what he said prior to the Memphis game. Just kind of saying, oh yeah, he's practicing. There's a chance he could play. There wasn't, and I don't anticipate him playing on Friday. I think homecoming next week versus Navy is the more likely return date for Byron Brown. With that being said, if he's back, then he's kind of superhuman, and that'd be super cool. But I think we're getting another Bryce Archie game, and what they were able to do in the second half, third quarter, late third, most of the fourth quarter against UAB, they ran crap out of the ball, and they were very effective. Even with a couple of injuries, they had to bring back in Mike Lofton at center. I think Bowman got hurt. They had to bring somebody else in. It was just injury after injury. So I think the bye week came at the right time. Run the ball. Give Kelly Joyner the ball. I think he is the guy. He's the guy at this point. I think it's pretty clear Kelly Joyner is the guy going forward. They're looking at the depth chart. There's still oars, but Kelly Joyner's at the top of the list. I think it probably should remain that way. Keyshawn Singleton, after his 100-yard performance, is a starter, listed as an oar with Michael Brown-Stevens, but he's a starter for all intents and purposes. Same with Josh Hardiman and Abdur Rahman Yassin. They're also oars on the outside, so something to kind of anticipate and look ahead and look forward to. It'll be interesting to see what the offensive line looks like if everybody's back healthy. I think with Cole Best leaving early against UAB, Mike had to come back in. But they didn't really miss too much of a beat with Lofton coming back in. But they definitely have to get the passing game going. And Seth, for you, UAB, they hit the deep shot to Keyshawn Singleton. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you in that game that Bryce Archie was able to do effectively passing to maybe lend some hope that the passing game can kind of get going a little bit better than it had been?
Yeah, well, it was interesting going back and kind of looking at some of the passing depth stuff. Just so much of it was in the short and behind the line of scrimmage. Like 20 of the attempts were, and over like 60% of your attempts just about were short and behind the line of scrimmage. So he seemed to throw the ball deep all right. I wouldn't, I think maybe it's a issue of protection, which has been, I mean, that's really, I think it all really starts there with this offense, right? Why are they not taking deep shots? Well, I don't think it's because if you watch, it's not because they don't have receivers to get down the field. Like they've got some guys that have gotten open downfield. It's because you can't protect them. It's seemingly. So if that's the big question, I think that's kind of the big thing to me, because like this offense can create run game just formationally, almost like get guys out of place, and that's why you do throw the ball quick sometimes, just to kind of make sure people are covering. But yeah, if I think you'd like to see more shots down the field. Hit one for a touchdown, one got called back, right? So like more of those. Only had 4 attempts, 20 plus yards in the game. I think that's maybe a function of what you got up front, but more of that. And then he was pretty efficient on those short throws. So
Yep.
that seems like maybe that's kind of go back to the early recipe last year where it was like dink and bomb.
Right.
Maybe you got to go back to that like for a little bit, because they got better throwing intermediate last year, but I think you're going to have to generate some explosives in the passing game to score. So take your shots. This is all easier if you can run the ball too, right? If I'm calling plays and I feel pretty good about getting myself into a third and manageable, or converting like a 3rd and 5 when it's second and like I'm more likely to take some shots, and an incompletion doesn't totally kill my drive. Where early in games when they're not able to run the ball, like you get the run. Sometimes you get run, just because it's if I pass, it's going to be so I'm not going to be able to take my shots. So I want to stay ahead of the sticks. But if you can run the ball early, I think that'll open up the opportunities to take some shots down the field, which is I think where like when this offense is best, that's what's happening. You're pushing the ball vertically, making people defend the width of the field and the verticality of the field, and that opens up seams for everything. So if teams don't respect you taking shots, it's going to take away a lot of the other stuff you want to do.
Absolutely. And the over-under, I think it's like 51.5. We kind of talked about it before we started recording, so it's a kind of an implied. USF's a favorite. This is according to Hard Rock Sportsbook. That's like an implied line of 27-24 for USF. Looking at numbers, just kind of raw data numbers, when USF scores more than 30 points under Alex Golesh, they're 8-2. They're 3-0 in 2024 when that happens. And then conversely, on the defensive side, if they allow 31 or more points, they're 0-8, including 0-3 this season. This offense needs to produce. I watched a clip of a John Gruden interview with, I think it was the Barstool guys a couple days ago, and he came to Tampa and was like, hey, the offense was always bad, but he challenged the defense. If you guys are so good, start scoring some touchdowns. I think a special team score or a defensive touchdown wouldn't be out of the question here. FAU does have a propensity to turn the ball over. Fancher has 6 interceptions. They fumbled quite a bit. Defensive score can steal a possession, kind of stem the tide. Best case scenario, you go down, take the ball, score, turnover, touchdown, defensive score. You're up 14-0 before the 10-minute mark of the first quarter or something like that. That's the best way to get a home crowd, and we'll use that loosely at FAU. The home crowd at FAU, kind of out of it. Looks like they're all wearing. I think they're going to be. It's going to be a red out. That's what it says, to wear red on the FAU site. So red out on a Friday night. It'd be a good way to kind of get the fans out of the game pretty quick. FAU does, and Seth, you kind of mentioned the defensive numbers. They've been able to forced 13 turnovers, 8 interceptions, 14, 8 interceptions, 6 fumble recovered by the defense. Recovered 60% of their fumbles on the defensive side of the ball, which is, fumble luck, yada, yada, yada. But you play hard, you hit, you do all those things, luck turns into skill at some point. So definitely something to look out for. The Bulls still, I mentioned a few weeks ago, the 2 turnovers is still a very key barometer. And we've talked about the Marino rule for years. That's one of the key things that you've harped on over the years. USF, they are 9-5 under Alex Golesh when they have 2 or fewer turnovers on offense. Now, I just said Alex Golesh is 10-10 in his career at USF, so they are 1-5 when they turn the ball over 3 or more times. That is a key stat to kind of put in the back of your head as you kind of track that for you. And then defensively, they're 8-1 when they force 2 or more turnovers. Their only loss was Alabama this year. They are 8-1, 3-1 this season when they force 2 or more turnovers defensively. So the points, got to score 30, can't give up 30. Force turnovers, don't turn the ball over. Easy recipe for success. Am I right, guys?
That's right.
Just score more points than the other team.
It's the Andy Taylor 6 rule. Just simply score more than the other team. A couple of FAU guys I did want to point out outside of Fancher. They have 2 pretty good running backs, CJ Campbell Jr. and Zuberi Mobley. Campbell, 4.7 yards a carry. He has 6 touchdowns. Mobley is averaging 5.2 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. There's 3 guys with more than 10 carries. I'll say more than 10 carries. Each of them have at least 70 carries. So they've been pretty run heavy this year. They're averaging 4.5 yards a carry. They're giving up 5. Those are the 3. Campbell, Mobley, Fancher. Those are the 3 guys on the ground that will kill you. So obviously going into this game, someone else will step up and do something. But those are the 3 guys you got to be mindful of. And then Mark Hayes, the wide receiver, he missed the UTA game. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be available for Friday night. And there's maybe another player that may not be available for Friday night for FAU that maybe we'll talk about in the Ponderosa section. That's another plug, guys. Hayes, 24 catches, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Owls. And then Campbell, as I mentioned, the running back, 17 catches, 175 yards, no touchdowns. Those are the only 2 guys with more than 10 receptions. They've got a bunch with 9. They have 4 guys with 9 catches, 1 with 7. So they spread the ball around, but those are your, receiver-wise, running back-wise, that's their offense. They should be able to do that. Change your signals. Don't get punked twice in a row. Otherwise, you may not get out of Boca. It's a long bus ride back. I don't think the Fowler Ave bus will have a spot for there.
No, you don't think?
No, I don't. I really don't. Is there anything?
Has anybody broken down? Izzy's ad for the Fowler Avenue bus, like the Zapruder film yet? Have we gotten any of that? Any body language experts?
We got it for Byram's promo that he did.
Yeah, but he's walking around.
I saw that as
people said
Lord.
I mean, he was walking around.
Yeah, people said that he was only able to take 8 steps because that's how long you can hobble, or something like that. I don't know. I saw some stupid shit about it.
Well, he was.
Well, there you go.
So was the push cart thing? Was that the UAB game? It's been a long 2 weeks, guys. That they had to delete the pictures.
Yeah,
was that UAB?
Yeah, that was in the locker room, right?
So he has that, but he's walking around pregame. I mean, it's just a whole mind game thing.
Like cloak and dagger.
I mean, that's just totally unnecessary.
I'm telling you, I think it'd be funny if they just keep putting him in the background of stuff and worse and worse. Like
Put him in an
put full
iron lung
body,
in the
iron
next one.
lung or full body cast in the background, just
Neck
and
brace.
then have him just walking around.
Well, the neck brace.
Just-
Kurt Angle neck
Like
brace in the
Bobby,
wheelchair.
said Bobby Petrino. The just have him in the background. Just see, it'll be a nice little Easter egg for everybody. And then during the game, he's just walking around like no problem.
The Kevin Nash had the wheelchair, had the leg up, and then he's got the blanket, and then he comes
off the blanket.
he moves the blanket, and he gets up, and he's fine. That'd be
Environment after pregame.
That'd be a good bit. Like he warms up in the locker room or like under the tunnel, so nobody knows, and then he comes out.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty great.
Can wheel him out. Then he comes out and does the coin toss. Tom Herman's head explodes.
So
would be sick.
That's honest to God all I got for this. I like you win this game. That's really what it boils down to. This is probably the hardest game, and we're gonna do the picks now, and then we're gonna get on out of here. This is probably the hardest game that I've had to like struggle with. Going into this week, just to be clear, I'm a perfect 7-0 picking USF games this season against the spread. A perfect 7-0. So I'm putting my 7-0 record on the line. So, Steeg, USF is favored by 3 points Friday night at FAU. The over-under is 51.5. What are you doing?
So, my gut. So we got a less than stellar offense by USF against a pretty good defense, pretty okay defense by FAU, and then you have a pretty not good offense by FAU against a bend don't break defense by USF. I think I'm gonna just cop out and pick over.
Okay, over 51.5.
I'm thinking with the amount of bad blood between these two, I think someone's gonna try to run up the score. And boy howdy, I hope it's the one that I like.
Big sing. Big sing. Seth, USF -3, over under.
Give me the Bulls.
Bulls by 3.
Give me the Bulls. Yeah, let's do it. I don't trust this FAU team. Right. I don't trust this USF team, but I trust them a little bit more. It's a trust off.
You're bad knee, Seth.
I would imagine. I shouldn't trust him about as far as I can throw him. I shouldn't be throwing anybody. So I think even if it's Bryce Archie, I think I would take him over Cam Fancher. Like Cam Fancher got ran out of Marshall because he was too terrible, and he has not been great all year. And I'm sure
the coach said the players didn't like him, right?
He just said it. Yeah, he just said it's been miserable or something like that.
Well,
yeah, I think he was talking about the fans not liking him, but it sounded like he's talking about his play. And if he's the best they got, then you feel pretty good that this offense isn't going to find a spark somewhere or something. So give me the Bulls.
All right. Putting my 7-0 reputation on the line here. Give me USF -3. Alex Golesh does not seem like a guy you want to have a grudge against or have him hold a grudge against you. Does not seem it works out for anybody. So I'm just based off of that. I don't think Alex Golesh is going to go quietly into the night down in Boca. Give me the Bulls by 3. Give me the Bulls by 15. If there's an alt line, give me the Bulls by 15. Don't make me look like an idiot, Alex.
Bold.
That being said, be safe, be smart, hug your loved ones, be kind. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.